Yeah, this is a camera, specifically a PTZ surveillance camera. For a sense of scale, here it is compared to a GoPro. It also weighs 11 pounds. There's so much more to this camera than I thought, and it turned out to be super interesting. Heck, I can even see a set of fans in there. For those of you who don't know, PTZ stands for Pan, Tilt, Zoom. You've probably seen these hanging from the ceiling at various retailers. It allows you to reposition the camera remotely and even zoom in. Mine has some interesting history and story behind it. It's a bit of an older model, so it actually outputs analog video. There's a bunch of loose wires hanging out the back, so I'm hoping I can get it to work. I have absolutely no information on this camera. Heck, I don't know anything about commercial CCTV cameras. So where to start? There's no branding at all on the outside of the unit, it's just a plain white dome. But I can see a few stickers on the inside of the camera. This one says Video Alarm Inc. Commercial CCTV product with a date of January 16th, 2007. There's conveniently a model number, but guess what? Googling it turns up literally no results. Even searching Video Alarm doesn't give me an official website. Luckily, there was another model number that I could see. Kind of interesting that there would be two of them, but oh well. That model number gave me some promising results. It looks like this is a camera made by Hitachi that outputs analog NTSC video, can be controlled over RS-232 serial, and runs off of 9 volts DC. So there we go. This is going to be super simple, right? At least that's what I thought. I bought the camera and brought it home, but I got to thinking, what does Video Alarm have to do with this camera? That sticker says it takes 24 volts of AC power, but the camera wants 9 volts DC. So which is it? Well, welcome to the rabbit hole. I learned a lot, and I have to admit, it's kind of interesting. Let's first look at the service manual for the Hitachi camera. And on the cover page, it immediately becomes clear what's wrong. This is just a camera and has no motors or anything that can move it around. So the whole thing is just a big chassis that a camera is dropped into. Video Alarm makes the dome, the PTZ mechanism, all that, and drops a Hitachi camera in there. It does take in 24 volts and it must convert it to 9 volts internally. That takes us back to Video Alarm, who deals with assembly and distribution, which I don't know where to go from there. There's very limited information on the surface, but I had the idea to check the Internet Archive. I just typed in Video Alarm, and to my surprise, there were a ton of manuals for PTZ cameras made by Moog Video Alarm. None of them had the same model number as mine, but I clicked on a dome camera that looked similar. There isn't a lot in this manual, but there was a wiring diagram. The wires on my camera and the wires in the diagram had the same colors, so that's promising. But did you catch that? There are 4 power wires. Red and orange power the camera, but yellow and green power the heater? Yeah, I won't lie, my jaw dropped. That's not something I expected in a camera. I knew there were fans inside, but I assumed it was for cooling the components or something. But I guess it's to get some air circulation for the heater. Then I realized why there's a heater at all. This is an outdoor camera. If this thing is in a blizzard, there's going to be snow and ice all over the dome. So there's a 50-watt heater inside that keeps the dome warm and prevents snow from building up on it. This never occurred to me, but it makes total sense. And just think about how wild that is for a second. It is just a camera. It just has to produce a video feed. But in this one unit, there's not only the PTZ mechanism, but there's also a power converter and climate control. I would have never guessed that. Anyway, back to the wiring diagram. There are 4 other wires, which are for alarm connections. I didn't read too much into this, but it looks like they're normally open, and when an alarm is tripped, like motion being detected, it shorts it with a common wire. This can essentially send a signal to your video recorder to start recording or something like that. And the last wire, the thicker copper-colored coax one, is the video output carrying standard analog NTSC video. So I have a pretty good idea of what the wires are for, but I still want to double check they're the same internally on my camera. So we'll have to crack this open. There are 9 captive Phillips head screws around the outside, then the dome just twists off. And this is the inside of a PTZ camera. Here's that huge camera from Hitachi on this mechanism that lets it move around. It pans and tilts, all that. Everything in here feels very high quality. All these plates are metal and it's pretty hefty. Let's take a look at all the parts. On one side of the camera is a servo motor that adjusts tilt, made by Japan Servo Co. Limited. It's connected to the camera with a belt, and the wire is connected to the board that's on the other side of the camera. This board is directly connected to the camera with a ribbon cable, so I assume it's talking to the camera and sending the focus, iris, and zoom adjustments. This board actually rotates along with the camera as it moves around. There are some wires that go through the middle, and all those go through a slip ring, which lets us stay connected while rotating. These all connect to another board underneath. To get a good look at what's under this, I can use a coin to unscrew just one screw, and then the whole thing kind of hinges up and out. It is a bit clunky because you have this whole camera mechanism rotating around, but it's also kind of satisfying. The second board is kind of the other half of its brain. It has a full power supply to make 9 volts for the camera, with a bridge rectifier and transformer and all that. I think this board deals with power and communicating with whatever's controlling the camera. There's another servo motor that controls the pan, and here's the other end of that slip ring. There's this big connector here that meets up with a matching connector inside the dome, and that gets it all connected. The red and orange power wires go directly into that. The 4 alarm wires go into this little board and then into the connector. I'm not sure what this board does, but there aren't a lot of components on it. And the last wire, the coax one, plugs into the connector but with a BNC jack, which is kind of cool. There's a lot more going on in here than I thought. Those boards are custom and have a copyright date of 2007 by Video Alarm. Pretty cool. That's not necessarily everything going on in this dome though. You might notice the yellow and green wires are missing. I'm pretty sure the heater element and whatever powers the fans are underneath that metal plate, but I was having trouble accessing it, so I'll worry about that later. Right now, I just want to power this up. I'll drop the camera module back into place, screw it in, then put the dome back on. Now it's time to wire this up. I used to solder everything together and make custom little adapters, but that seemed really permanent and it's a pain if I mess up. So this time I'll be using a terminal block. I like the terminal blocks that the camera already had on it for the alarm wires. They're very convenient because you can just strip the wire a little bit and then screw them in, and it makes a secure connection. I unscrewed the alarm wires from the old terminal block and also stripped the coax wire for the video feed. Then I got my new block and shoved the video and alarm lines into it. Now you might be wondering what cable I'll be running this over. Well, of course, Cat 6. This terminal block plugs into an RJ45 jack, and I have 100 feet of Cat 6 to run it over. Now, why would I choose Twisted Pair? Because it's cheap. Trust me, I know this isn't meant for running video over, and I know it's not shielded properly. It's good enough for me. As far as power goes, I'm going to need 24 volts AC. The wall power in the United States is 120 volts AC, so I need a transformer to step it down. If you just pull up Amazon, you'll see 24 volt transformers for doorbells, but I don't really trust these, especially because they aren't designed for the power draw of a PTZ camera. I found one on Eagle Electronics, which I had never heard of before. This does up to 72 watts and is specifically for PTZ cameras. So I got it. This might not look that big on camera, but here's a phone charging brick for scale. It's huge and heavy. All it does is step down the voltage coming from the wall though. It's still alternating current, and that's exactly what the camera needs. I stripped back the red and orange wires and screwed them into this barrel jack with terminals on the other end. You'll notice there is a positive and negative terminal, and I just ignored that. The manual didn't specify which wires for hot and which wires for neutral, and with AC power, it sometimes doesn't matter. I guess this is a good time to say, try this at your own risk. I'm not an electrician, do your own research. It's also a good time to thank my Patreon supporters. Their support helps me get stuff for these videos like this transformer or all the other parts I needed. This video doesn't have annoying mid-rolls or sponsorships, and that's thanks in part to these people. If you'd like to help the channel, I have it linked in the description, and it starts at $2 a month. I would really appreciate it. Now that we have our connections, I think it's time to fire this up. In case it literally did go up in flames, I took it outside. So here goes nothing. Just kidding, nothing happened. So it's either not working at all, or it's on and outputting video. So I went inside to make the other end of the Cat 6 cable. I screwed in some wire on the pins the video would be on, and that will be going into this BNC terminal thing. Now we have a BNC jack for the video, and of course that's not all the adapters I have to use. My portable Sony TV has its video over a 3.5mm jack, so a few adapters later and it's ready to go. I brought it back outside and plugged the ends together, just over a short distance for now. After turning the camera back on, there was no video output. I even tried skipping a bunch of the adapters and touching wires directly to the video output, but even that didn't work. I did about 20 minutes of troubleshooting after that, which I won't show in the main video, but it's in the behind the scenes on Patreon. After all that, I realized the camera was making a very faint clicking sound. It clicked about twice per second, and I saw this LED light inside that flashed every time it clicked. So I'm thinking it's trying to power up, but it can't because the power supply went bad. It's kind of like that VCR that I made a video on a year ago. The lights would only blink, it was never able to turn on. I was able to fix that by replacing all the capacitors on the power supply, so I guess I'm doing that for this camera. None of the capacitors look like they've gone bad, except for this one that's bulging very slightly, but let's give it a shot. I ordered a few of every capacitor that I could see on that board, just in case I needed extra. And when it got here, I took apart the camera again so I could get to the power supply board. I'm really hoping this works because if it's not the capacitors, I'm not sure what else to do. Here's that power supply board. It looks like it's not going to be too difficult to replace the capacitors. The only thing I'm worried about is this little 10 microfarad capacitor. The replacement I got is much bigger even though it's the same value. So that's a little interesting, but we'll worry about that later. I started with the biggest capacitor, desoldering that and soldering the new one into place. I don't have a lot of experience with soldering, so my joints aren't perfect, but it should get the job done. I only replaced the 3 biggest capacitors and decided I might as well try and turn it on. I figure I shouldn't touch the other ones if I don't have to, so I reassembled it and took it back outside. I also remember reading in the manual that you're not supposed to power these up while they're laying down since it's designed to be hanging and it can put strain on the motors. So I had to hold this while plugging it into the barrel jack. I plugged it in and there were 2 loud clicks. I thought things were going south at first, but then... yeah, it started moving. It was doing a calibration sequence. This thing looks so cool and I can't believe it works. And now let's see if we get video. I plugged in the RJ45 adapters that I made, but unfortunately that didn't work. Until... yep, it's outputting video. I couldn't believe my eyes. My cable didn't work. I actually had to shove the bare coax wire into the RCA jack for it to work, but I'm just glad it did. Now to fix the cable so we can fully enjoy the camera. My first thought was that the camera end wasn't making good contact. I basically shoved the hair-thin coax core into the terminal block, and I wouldn't be surprised if that didn't work. So I wanted to add an extra wire on the end of it that could make a better contact. I did some janky stuff that involved soldering directly to the coax core. Look, signal integrity went out the window days ago. It's analog video, so it can handle some interference. And I even put heat shrink on it, so it should hold. Then I screwed those new wires into the BNC adapter, and still nothing. So it must be the BNC adapter, and I cut the terminal part off of it. What is a video balun anyway? Well, it allows twisted pair to be used in CCTV applications, so exactly what I needed. Apparently it lets you have much better signal over distances up to 5,000 feet, that's 1.5 kilometers. That's insane. It converts the unbalanced input into a balanced output, and you probably need another one on the other end, which is why mine didn't work. The balanced signal will effectively cancel out a bunch of the noise and make the image a lot better. The name balun actually comes from balanced, unbalanced. It even provides lightning protection. The more you know. Too bad I don't have one anymore. I took the raw BNC cable and screwed it into the terminal block. Then I turned on the camera again and still nothing. Turns out I put the BNC jack on the wrong side of the terminal block, so third-ish times the charm. I have it wired up properly, and I don't see any reason why this shouldn't work. When I plugged in the camera, you can see the TV synced to something, then an image showed up. This is just sitting on a rug in my garage, so there's nothing interesting to see, but we can watch that calibration sequence happen. At the end of it, it even says video alarm. So let's try it over 100 feet of wiring. Again, this should just work. I'm inside the house now, and the camera is outside with 100 feet of cable between us. When I turn on the camera, there's a little static initially and the TV isn't synced. But then, there we go. That's grass, and the resolution isn't horrible. You can definitely make out the individual blades of grass. It's starting that calibration sequence now. I'm pretty sure this is just to find out where it's positioned for pan and tilt so it can keep track of it as you move it around. And there's the video alarm text saying version 3. The image quality isn't that bad. Here's a direct hookup of it in my office under ideal conditions. It's definitely soft, but it's still that smooth analog video, and I love it. All that's great, but something didn't seem right. How would you control the camera? I have 4 wires for power, 4 wires for alarm, and a video output. There's nothing to connect to the computer so you can move the camera. I looked back at the manual, again for a similar model, and noticed something that I had overlooked. There's also an RJ45 jack that you're supposed to plug in for local control over internet. That's not good because mine definitely doesn't have that. I need a specific manual for my camera, but that model number doesn't seem to exist. I decided to just go to manuals lib and scroll through the list of Moog video alarm manuals hoping to find something. Then I remember there was another ID on a sticker inside. It was the Reg ID, which I assume stands for Registration ID or something. It's PFD8, so I scrolled to the P's, and there it was, PFD8C2. This is a dome camera that takes 24 volts AC and has a similar mount and parts. This is my manual, and here's the pinout. The power wires are the same, but what I thought were alarm wires are actually serial control wires. It looks like it communicates over RS485. This clears up a lot about the camera and gives me hope that I can control it. I wish it was RS232 since I already had an adapter for that, but I got a cheap adapter off a DigiKey that should work. RS485 and RS232 are both serial, but they have some differences. You can read up on those because it's very technical, but it sounds like 485 is really good over long distances of twisted pair. This is the serial adapter I got. It has terminal blocks on one end, which is super helpful. The only thing is I have 4 serial wires on the camera, RX-A and B and TX-A and B, but the adapter only has 2, A and B. It turns out you can connect both A wires together and B wires together, and now you have 2 wires serial. Look, I don't ask questions. If it works, it works. It looks kind of wrong, and I was a little worried it would short out the camera and break it all over again. But I plugged it into my computer anyway and set up a serial connection at 9600 baud. If you remember when the camera started up, it said auto baud on the video feed, so I don't think the baud rate actually matters. Anyway, I turned on the camera and immediately saw some stuff printed to the console. It was a jumbled mess, but that's something, and I was excited. Now I need to figure out how to communicate with the camera. I was worried this would be a completely proprietary protocol. I came across a website called PTZprotocols.com that actually had Video Alarm listed, but the only document on it was for a physical controller console thing, made by Video Alarm. Trust me, I think this is cool, but I'm not shelling out the money for one. I looked around for generic PTZ serial commands, and they were huge lists of hex commands. But in my search for any documentation, I came across this PTZ controller software from Serial Port Tool. I'm not endorsing it or anything, it's just the first software I came across. It didn't even list Video Alarm in the supported protocols, but I figured it could save me a lot of time if it somehow worked. And there was a free trial. So this is the software. It has controls for pan, tilt, zoom, iris, focus, all that. It even has preset positions that you can save and a bunch of other stuff we can mess with. By default, it came with a camera already programmed in, so I opened the settings for that. I changed it to COM3, which was the USB serial modem, but everything else I left on the defaults, including the protocol, which was Pelco D. I saved it, it said it connected to the camera, so I tried the pan control. I couldn't believe it, it works! It's so weird controlling this from my computer. There's not much delay either, and the movement is really smooth. Tilt and zoom also work as expected. It actually has some decent zoom. It's all optical and looks super clear after it autofocuses. The controls for iris works too. You can see it getting brighter and darker as I adjust it. Again, it's so awesome that the default protocol just worked. There's a long list of protocols from different vendors, and I'm glad Video Alarm didn't use anything proprietary. Pelco D seems to be pretty widely used for PTZ cameras. Back to the software, I mentioned presets before. If I go to the preset menu and choose 1, then press set, it will save this exact position as preset 1. Then if I move the camera to another spot and set preset 2, it keeps both in memory. Also, I just want to point out the image quality again. This is zoomed way in on a power cord and some other stuff, and you can see how well it focused on it. The background is all nice and blurry. It's a good camera. Anyway, if I click preset 1, it zips over to that spot and even zooms out. Nice. The auto scan button will cycle through whichever presets you want automatically. This is most likely for nighttime when there's no one to position the cameras, but you want to surveil a large area. It can stay on one preset for a couple seconds and then move to the next and keep doing that all throughout the night. You can even have configurable functions that do anything, can move to presets or whatever, and you can even send raw serial commands. I tried to get a serial command to work, one that puts text on the screen, and I'm not sure if I got the command wrong or if the camera doesn't support it, but it never ended up working. Some cameras allow you to put text on the screen so you can label each camera as loading dock, entrance, all that stuff. Here's something that's super cool though. See that little joystick option? You can connect a joystick to the software to move the cameras around. It would usually be a console thing like the one I showed earlier, but maybe it works with an Xbox controller? I connected it with Bluetooth to my computer and rebooted the software. Sure enough, it shows up and I can connect to it. It's actually a very good input device since it's an analog stick. Something is so weird about controlling a commercial PTZ camera from 2008 with a modern Xbox controller. Speaking of weird, this thing. I overlooked this many times, but there's a Schrader valve on top, so you can inflate the camera with a bike pump. Well, pressurize it. Now, this looks super weird, and I'm hoping my neighbors didn't see me using a bike pump on a security camera. I'm also doing this wrong. You're not supposed to put more air into the camera, it's supposed to be nitrogen gas. It will keep the outside air and all the dirt and particles out. It also prevents condensation, rust, and corrosion. Again, this camera is meant to be exposed to snow and dust storms, so it has to be super tough and reliable. It actually has an IP66 rating. If the pressure ever drops to a critically low point, there's an optional low pressure warning that will trip and tell you to repressurize it. And this camera actually still holds pressure. You can hear the air getting released as I push down the valve. So cool. I still want to know more about the company. Video Alarm is who made the camera, but who is Moog? I actually uncovered a lot of interesting information about this small company and some of their history that isn't available on the surface. We start, thanks to the Internet Archive, on their website from 1996. Websites looked so good back then. On their About page, it says they're based in Decatur, Georgia, and specialize in CCTV accessories. Notice how it says accessories since they don't make the camera itself, just the chassis and other things. They apparently had the widest assortment of camera domes and housings available anywhere, including pan, tilts, mounts, and housings. They're specifically known for their outdoor dome housings that were invented by the founder, Ray Pagano. Let's see if there's any information on where he is today. I would love to show you this information, but LinkedIn is hiding it behind a login screen, and when I go to login, they're making me verify with my government ID. After making a new account, I can finally see his page. He hasn't updated it since his time at Video Alarm, but it looks like he was there all the way until the end where he helped with their exit strategy. As far as other employees, looking at their email directory, it's clear this is a small company. They have 6 people listed here, and while this probably isn't everyone at the company, I would guess it's a lot of them. There's not a lot of information on these people, but Aaron, the electrical engineer, would move on to be an electrical engineer for Denon, Coca-Cola, Boeing, and a number of other companies. On their news page, they have an announcement for their Eagle Eye housing, which is also meant to withstand the elements. It has a heater and blower in it too, and even includes a blinking LED light, just like in the movies. Let's move ahead a little bit. Here's their website in 2005. Front and center on their website is an announcement for their new product, the Warrior Elite TM. This is a vandal-resistant camera that's designed to resist a 10-pound sledgehammer strike. It also has a heater and blower. Crazy. There's more. The updated About page includes a video.
Video Alarm, a leading name in the security industry, a company dedicated to innovation and excellence. It began in 1976 when Ray Pagano, the founder of Video Alarm, invented outdoor dome technology. Over the years, we've continued to make advancements in the industry, introducing new and innovative products such as the Pressure Dome, the world's first pressurized dome, and the Deputy Dome, the world's first and only ballistic dome.
That's right, they were even the first to make a bulletproof camera dome. That video was actually for their
Polevator
TM product.
Introducing a pole that's like no other in the industry.
It's essentially a fancy pole that you mount the camera to that makes maintenance a lot easier. On one of the articles they have on their website, they talk about how the Polevator TM was used at Penn State University to monitor their stadium. Here's what it looks like mounted to the top of the scoreboard. When it's time to perform maintenance on the camera, use a drill to lower and raise the entire pole. You don't have to have any lift equipment to access the camera, which is perfect for something like a stadium where they wouldn't be able to do that. I found a Yahoo article from 2014, and it looks like the Polevator TM was still in use, probably up until they got the new scoreboard. While I was still on their website, I went to the spec sheets page. To my surprise, my camera showed up and the PDF was archived. It says this dome works with the Pelco protocol, which tracks. The temperature range is negative 20 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about negative 30 to 50 degrees Celsius. The optional cold weather kit extends that down to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit and Celsius. There's the wall-mounted version as pictured, which has an IP56 rating, and the pendant mount version, like I have, that has IP66. Apparently the heater will automatically turn on when it reaches 40 degrees Fahrenheit 4 Celsius and turn back off at 60 Fahrenheit 16 Celsius. Okay, I mentioned the end of the company was in 2009. Here's what their website looked in February of that year. At the bottom, there's an announcement that Moog will be acquiring Videoalarm. Apparently, Videoalarm's expertise in networking, system integration, and meeting extreme environmental requirements would help Moog. It was a $45 million acquisition and was reported in their space and defense segment. Moog makes flight control systems and other control products for military and commercial aircraft, and they make other products for space and defense industries. I'm sure they have their fingers in a lot of other pies too. One interesting thing I found was the part number for the slip ring in the middle of the camera was actually a Moog part number. Now this eBay listing looks a lot different, but that's interesting that they're connected like that at all. Especially because that slip ring was made before the Moog acquisition. Maybe they inherited that part number. Anyway, after February 2009, the website would go offline for about a year, then it started getting rebranded as Moog. It looks like they continued releasing products under the name Moog Videoalarm, which is cool. Moog kept up the website and kept releasing products for a while, but eventually, around 2013, everything got phased into the Moog brand. After 2014, it would redirect you to the Moog website, and it stayed like that for years, until now. It redirects you to Quickset Defense Technologies, formerly Moog Sensor and Surveillance Systems, which is a subsidiary of Moog. So maybe parts of Videoalarm live on to this day. They don't operate out of the same building though. The earliest Google Street View shows is 2011 when it was Moog Videoalarm. By 2016 it was occupied by another company, and currently, in 2025, it looks vacant. All that's left of Videoalarm in this building is a dome camera mount with no camera. But hey, this company had some amazing accomplishments. They got a lot done in their 30+ year run, and they made an impact on the surveillance world. They had a good run. One more thing I have to add. I was watching the video on the Pullovator TM, and the building they were in front of looked familiar. It was their main office. I went back to that street view from 2011 and moved down the road a little. Look at that, the Pullovator TM, still standing in front of their building. It had a different camera on it, but it's so cool that it was still there. It did eventually get taken down by the time Moog Videoalarm left that building, but to this day, there's still a small slab of concrete in front of the building where the Pullovator video was shot 25 years ago. I bet no one who works there now knows what it's for. And I noticed if you go to videoalarm.com and get redirected to Quickset, it actually takes you not to the homepage but to the security camera pull page, where you can still see the Pullovator TM product page to this day. There's even a new demonstration video shot in front of the same building. This was shot by someone wearing a Moog shirt this time, but that's the only sign that this company was once Moog. All the other branding has been changed to Quickset. Okay, I think that's about it for this video. Huge thank you to my Patreon supporters who helped make this possible. Again, this whole video went without any mid-rolls or sponsors, even though YouTube really wants me to add more ads. If you'd like to support me on Patreon, I would really appreciate it. It allows me to get this camera and the parts required and who knows what else in the future. You get early access and behind the scenes for the videos, and I just uploaded the one for this video. Thank you for watching.